And we are live with another episode of Comic Talk. It's that show brought to you by The Keeg, where we talk about this week's new releases of comics. Today is Thursday, April 13th. New DC Comics, for those of you who don't know, new DC Comics come out every Tuesdays. So on the 11th, new Marvel and Indie Comics come out on Wednesdays, which was the 12th. And we're here on the 13th to talk about this week's new releases of comics. I'm your host, Dimithri Perera. And for those of you who are watching the live stream, it is twitch.tv/The Keeg Show or even youtube.com/The Keeg Show. Pick your poison. Or maybe you're listening to the podcast, and that's wherever you get your podcasts from. I was going to list them, but trust me, look up the podcast. If you're watching us live, you can see who our guest is, and he hasn't been on the show for quite a while, but he is back, baby. Back, baby! DC is back, baby. What was that from? That was from something, and I was doing that for like 6 months on the Keeg, like on every Keeg show. I don't remember.
And it definitely came true. They are definitely back. No problems have happened in the last 6 months with DC.
There was
entertainment at all.
I think it might have been for Snyder Cut when Snyder Cut came out, and then people were like, DC's back, baby. I can't remember exactly what it was.
The hierarchy of power did change.
What's that?
Clear. The hierarchy of power did change.
Yeah.
We all have to acknowledge that the hierarchy of power changed in a major way.
Which is funny, and by the way, everybody, Brian Long, everybody, Captain Comic Rex,
hi, yeah.
Everybody. It reminds me, The Rock saying the DC power, the hierarchy in the DC universe is about to change. Reminds me a lot of the Jedi Council in Star Wars saying that Anakin will bring balance to the Force. What they didn't realize, they weren't wrong. What they didn't realize, it meant killing all the Jedi. So, balance to the Force. Yeah. Who's to say, it's very Greek tragedy.
The hierarchy of power would change. It just meant he would be shown the door.
Exactly. But I'm glad to have you. I'm glad to have you back.
Yeah, glad to be back. I realized today, there's so many crazy things that have happened that we haven't had a chance to discuss. I don't think we've talked about Sins of Sinister at all. So I'm excited to talk about all this craziness with you. This was a great week for books.
It was, and I read all of them, and I was just I was happy about reading all of them, and because that's not always the case.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Read some real stinkers.
Well, sometimes it's an obligation, especially for this show.
Sure.
But I make sure to tell everybody which ones I'm reading obligatorily. I'm not here to mince words. If they're good, they're good, and if they're not, they're not. And if it's a sludge, it's a sludge.
Yeah.
But Brian, it's been a long time, and
yes,
although I remember you in my heart of hearts, okay, my brain doesn't remember what you're into comic-wise.
Okay, well, I feel like I have a very omnivorous appetite.
Jack Kirby, that's all I know, but he's been dead for years.
I do love my boy Jack. Yeah, I do love the King. I definitely find that my pull list is primarily Marvel, with indies maybe coming up in second place, and then DC bringing up the rear. Just because DC has lost me in a big way the last couple of years, but I've been slowly getting back into some of the new stuff.
Oh no, they've gained me. They've brought me in. Clear,
they have gained me too, in that for a while there I was picking up nothing from DC, and now I am picking up more than nothing.
Yeah.
They're making a very smart decision in my mind, which is just let Mark Waid write a bunch of stuff, which I am all for.
So Mark Waid right now, and Mark Waid has been writing comics for decades, but Mark Waid right now is writing Batman Superman World's Finest, but then he also has the new Shazam book that is going to be coming out, and then also, I thought that was it. I thought it was going to be World's Finest and Shazam. That's enough for most writers. Most writers write one book.
Yeah.
No, they've doubled that. They doubled it, and then they doubled again, right? He was at one title. They doubled it. He was at 2 titles, and then they doubled the 2. Now he has 4, which is I'm assuming he's sticking with Batman Superman World's Finest, because it's been a highlight of my life. As a comic book fan, a highlight. So Batman Superman World's Finest, Shazam, Teen Titans World's Finest, which is a very interesting thing that World's Finest now is kind of almost going to be a brand in and of itself.
Yeah.
A little
Yes.
label, so to speak.
A kind of like not out of continuity, but like not in current continuity or like current timeline, but like somewhere in the past.
In current continuity, somewhere in the past, but still factors into the present. That's the biggest part about this whole thing. And then what was the fourth book? There was a fourth book. What was it?
It was the Superman Last Days of Lex Luthor.
That's what it is. Is it a miniseries or is it an ongoing?
Yes, it's
for
a
Superman?
3-issue Black Label book. But it has an awesome premise of Lex Luthor is dying and Superman's trying to find a cure for what ails him.
Yeah.
And the whole world's like, just let him die. He sucks.
Boo! I'm going to be honest. I love Superman, and the best thing about Superman is that he's hopeful and that he's a he's a beacon, right, for everybody.
Absolutely.
But I feel like in the real world, or like if I was in the DC world, this is not the real world, Brian. This is the DC world's the real world. In that world, I would be upset at Superman
for trying to help Lex Luthor to live.
I love him in this world because this world needs more Superman, but that world needs less Lex Luthor. You know what I mean?
I agree. I mean, this world needs less Lex Luthor as well, but we're gonna take what we can get, I suppose.
Right. But like, so my sensibilities don't necessarily transfer over, but like, a lot has happened in the last couple months. Last episode that I had you, like a last real episode was December 22nd. And so it's been...
Wow, was that long ago?
It's been
a minute.
Almost 5 months.
Dang, yeah.
But I mean, big changes for you recently, right?
Yeah, I mean, my son turned 1 at the end of January, which is very exciting. He's figuring out how to walk now, which is crazy and very scary for me. But like those are really the major changes. Just my son getting older, cats in the cradle. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And the silver spoon, little boy
Boy Blue and the Man on the Moon,
something like that. Yeah. So that's what's okay. I don't think I've worded my feelings as well as I did earlier when I said, like, I know you in my heart, but my brain is like, what does Brian even read anymore? I don't know. I don't know. So let's real quick. Tell me one thing. Yeah, tell me one thing.
Well, I was gonna say one thing because I feel like every week when I tune into Comic Talk, or just about every week, I feel bad because you're the one person who's all caught up on X-Men, and everybody's like, "Oh, I haven't read X-Men." I'm like, Dimithri, I'm reading X-Men, and someday we'll be together. We could talk about X-Men. So this is the moment.
You can hear me, right? Maybe.
We finally catch up on X-Men together.
Yeah.
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
No. The connection's messed up, and I can't figure out whether it's me, whether it's you.
Gotcha. Oh, well, I think you're back now.
Okay, I'm back. Your face is frozen. But we're able to talk. You can hear me? Okay, wait. You might be back. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I mean, your face shifted. Everything, like, your video shifted. But here's the thing. I'm still streaming, which means, like, it can't be my internet connection right now. I would say it is, but it's been golden so far.
Okay.
Is it your internet connection?
I don't know. I can't quite tell.
Okay.
Your thing has red bars next to your name. I don't know if that tells me anything.
I think the red bars are you. Oh, it's next
Oh
to my
well, then
name?
we both have red bars, I guess. Maybe the
Oh,
connection's
okay.
just bad.
All right, it's all right. I think we're back. I think we're back. Wait. No, you're still freezing up. We're gonna figure this out. We're gonna figure this out. Brian, if you can hear, let's see. I feel like people out there are really learning how the sausage is made with this one. You know. Um, I can hear you kind of. I'm hearing something.
Can you hear me? Oh, you're
Yeah,
back again.
yeah,
I
yeah,
was
yeah.
trying to type to you in the chat, but you're back now.
I messaged you on Instagram. But if you want to log off and then back on again, maybe that might fix it. Who knows? But now it's my internet connection. That's wonderful. You there? Anyway, um, it's increasing, which isn't great. How is this? How is this happening? Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, are you logged into 2 accounts right now?
No, I'm using a different device.
Okay, 2 different. Did you log out of the previous one?
I thought I did.
This is going crazy right now. Okay, so what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna assume. Okay, what I'm gonna do.
Where does it say?
This is.
Is there like one that doesn't show me at all that you can kick out?
I'm afraid it's gonna reflect bad on your account. So let's see.
What do you mean?
Because if I kick you out, what if it's this, but then there's a glitch?
Oh,
You know.
you're saying. Oh, this is weird.
All right, there we go. You're back, and we're still streaming. There was a problem with my internet like for a second afterwards, after you left, but you might want to do it horizontal.
Yeah.
You're not horizontal right now, right?
No, I'm not, but I think it was cutting me off in a way. Let me.
Is that okay?
Does that look better? Does that look better?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Cool. Hello. Cool. Sorry, I'm back.
So, we'll start from here. We'll get down to business because of everything. But basically, as we start off this episode, I want to know what books you read this week because you read a lot of books. I need to know the issues and the numbers, or the series and the issues.
Yeah. Okay, so I read Great British Bump Off #1, TMNT Usagi Yojimbo #1, Moon Knight 22, X-Men 21, Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants #3, The Seasons Have Teeth #1, Guardians of the Galaxy #1, Captain America Cold War #1, Superman Lost #2, Barbaric Hell to Pay #3, Fantastic Four #6, Stoneheart #2, Miles Morales Spider-Man #5, Bloodline Daughter of Blade #3, and Silver Surfer Ghostlight #3. I think that was enough. I think I read enough comics this week, frankly.
Yeah, I don't think anyone can say that you don't read comics, you know? I feel like that's fair. That's fair. Let me see what I read. I read Captain America Cold War #1. I read Fantastic Four #6. I read Guardians of the Galaxy #1. I read Spider-Man Miles Morales #5. I read Sins of Sinister Storm of the Brotherhood of Mutants #3. I didn't get to Superman Lost. I didn't get to it. I wish I did. X-Men 21 I read 8 Billion Genies #8. I read Monarch #5. I read Nemesis Reloaded #4. Predator #2. That's my list.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, but it's not a competition. I feel like we both read this. I feel like we both read the same amount, but then half our things crossed over and half of them didn't, which is great.
Yeah.
You know.
So
by the way, I got this new shirt.
Oh, that's sick.
It says Mutant Beach Party, but really it only has Psylocke in the corner, and she's not in like, it's not like the Marvel swimsuit edition that they did. It's not like that. It's really just Psylocke and a Sentinel head. So I don't know why it's called Mutant Beach Party, but all right.
I mean, she's kind of always in swimwear, I feel.
In a way, yeah.
Yeah.
You're asking me my pick of the week?
Yeah, what was your... the tables have turned, Dimitri. What was your pick of the week?
This is... I mean, it's... I'm gonna have to pick, and this is... I must declare, I did meet Ryan Soule. Charles Soule and Ryan Brown. Ryan Brown and Charles Soule, right?
Yes.
Charlie Brown and the Duke of Soul. I met the writer and the illustrator of 8 Billion Genies at C2E2, and they were cool. I may have made a joke about 8 billion weenies, but like I didn't get that on tape. I didn't get it on tape, so I don't. But
I'll just take your word for it.
I've been a vocal proponent of this series since it came out. I was there, like talking about it right when it came out, and it's been great. And I think that my pick of the week is 8 Billion Genies, #8.
Nice.
And
now I didn't realize this was the final issue when we were talking about it earlier.
Yeah, it's 8 issues because it's 8 billion genies. Everything is that number 8 pops up a lot.
Okay.
So the first book is the first 8 minutes of the genies.
Mm-hmm.
The second book is the first 8 hours of the genies. Then it's 8 days. Then it's 8 weeks. Then it's 8 months. Then it's 8 years. So what are we at? Days? No, we were at minutes, hours, days, weeks, years. That's 5. So 8 years. 80 years. No, 8 years. What am I missing?
Months? You never said months?
Oh, I forgot months. But yes, and then it's 80 years, and then it's 800 years.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, yeah.
So the final issue is 800 years after the initial genie incident.
Crazy.
And
do you feel like it stuck the landing?
I think for someone like me, I think it stuck the landing. I think if you were looking for a negative outcome, if you were yes, people die in this book, but like overall, it is a hopeful book, right?
Sure.
So I feel like if you were looking for a downer of an ending, spoiler alert, it's not a downer of an ending, but it's not a perfectly happy ending, but it is a hopeful one. It's very nice. The way they wrap it up is very nice, and I think that was a perfect way to end it. I think it would be too saccharine to be like, well, then they rewound time, and then, nothing ever happened in the first place. I guess, spoiler alert, they don't do that. But what they do, I think is very interesting. And I don't want to. I know you said that I could spoil it for you because you haven't read it, but
Sure.
I've had like such a great joy reading this book that I would hope that you don't get spoiled until you get to experience it.
I need to sit down and read it, especially because it's easily available on Hoopla, which is I'm not being paid by Hoopla, but I would love to be. I'm very willing to sell out.
Is Hoopla
Hoopla
an actual company or is it a public institute? It's like an NPR sort of thing?
In a way, it's technically a public institution because it is a app that is connected to the public library system.
Yeah.
And on it, you can listen to like audiobooks and you can read digital books. And they have a really good comic selection where some companies are literally putting out like single issues after they come out onto Hoopla. So you don't even have to wait for the trade. You know, with a lot of stuff, you might be like waiting for like the entire collection to come out. But 8 Billion Genies has been popping up, I think, like a week or two after it comes out.
To read digitally?
Yeah, to read digitally.
Okay.
So if your library uses Hoopla, you can just hop on there and read all the issues of 8 Billion Genies and you're good to go.
Okay. All right. We need to figure out how to get in touch with Hoopla because, you know, I mean, it's a great resource for comics.
Yeah,
because
it's been terrific. I love it.
I used to read comics from the library. That's how I got into comic books. And
Same.
The library has a special place in my heart, you know, especially as a comic book reader. And I do recommend that to like anyone. Just go to your library, check out a bunch of. I used to check out like a whole stack of comics at once, but then you pay a fee if they're late, so then that's a problem too. You gotta be careful.
Well, now in our modern time, a lot of libraries have even abolished those late fees, which is pretty crazy.
So then you could just keep the books forever?
I mean, basically, yeah.
How does
honor system thing.
No, there's no way. There has to be some way to stop people from just keeping the books.
My library system does in Jersey City. I know the New York Public Library System started doing it a couple years ago.
People don't steal books for just create a home library?
Like, people probably take books and forget to return them or just steal them, but it's an honor system.
No, that's too much. I don't, because I would steal, like, I'm not above that. Like, would I take a book? I'd be like, okay, I mean, I like this book enough. I don't want to give it back. Let me just keep it.
You're a library cop is what you're saying.
No, I'm just saying that I don't like the fees. But maybe instead of a fee system, it's you just can't use your library card until you return the books. So then they just shut down your card, but then you have to bring back the books.
Oh, wow, I think they're trying to abolish the punitive system.
But it's not that punitive. It just says you can't check out new books. You can come into the library and you can read for free, but you just can't check it out until you return. It's like old Netflix. You remember the old Netflix DVDs? You got to return the DVD to get a DVD? That's what I would think, except no charge. Well, that's fair.
Right. Can I make a comment about 8 Billion Genies?
Yes, and then we got to move on. But yes, there's a lot.
It's interesting that the structure of this book is interesting to me because I feel like that's becoming, and I think we can use this to transition into another book.
Yeah.
But it's interesting how this is becoming almost a trend in comic book storytelling of using these massive time jumps while telling your story. Because I think of like Hoxpox did it, Sins of Sinister is currently doing it, and now 8 Billion Genies is doing it. I think that's kind of the advantage of the comic book medium is you can make these giant time leaps and tell this like overarching story where the reader has to fill in the blanks between issues because you don't have to worry about actors aging out of the role or any things like that. You can create a world that is radically different from what you've already established.
So I would say yes. I would say like I agree with you that like this is the medium to be able to do that. I mean, you could do that with cartoons and stuff too, but really, Sins of Sinister is doing it because X-Men is doing it, like because Hoxpox did it, right?
Right.
So it's not like they're both independent of each other. Sins of Sinister is only doing it because Hoxpox did it.
Well, I was surprised that ended up being the direction that Sins of Sinister took when I started reading it.
Yeah.
But
I like it.
I didn't really. I love it. I think it's awesome.
I originally, I don't know how much you've been paying attention, but like I didn't care for Sinister. I didn't think it needed to exist. Why do I need to care about an alternate timeline? But I think that this alternate timeline will be reset, but with repercussions for the main timeline. I think it's so.
I agree.
I'm very interested to see how that works out. But
Yeah.
you know,
I also just love that the central premise is that Sinister finally gets what he wanted without realizing that a world that's just Mr. Sinister's would be endless backstabbing.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful little twist of characterization to make that the outcome of this. It's like, yeah, you got what you wanted, and it's your own personal nightmare.
Which is interesting because here's the thing. When it gets reset, will Sinister have learned his lesson? Will he be a different Sinister?
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's kind of the big question I think that's still hanging over this. Will this actually change him as a person? Because it seemed like I guess it was, I'm trying to remember what the last one was before this. I guess it would have been Immoral X-Men #3. It seems like he might have actually changed. And then you read this one, you're like, this guy's still such a piece of shit.
Immoral X-Men #3 ends with the Chimera, whatever her name is, Rasputin, right?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
yeah. So tell me though, before we even get into that, what's your pick of the week?
Oh, sure. So I would probably have 2 picks of the week this week. I think Storm of the Brotherhood is maybe my like second place pick. I really enjoyed it a lot.
I really enjoyed it too. Yeah.
But I think I have 2 number ones, which was the first one is The Great British Bump Off #1.
Okay.
Which just the quick like elevator pitch of it is
tell me about it.
It's an Agatha Christie style murder mystery, but in the Great British Bake Off reality competition show.
Okay.
So if you've ever seen the Great British Bake Off, it's essentially like a group of like 12-ish people, and each week they get different, challenges.
A baker's bake. That's not a baker's dozen. A baker's dozen would be 13.
No, 13 would be a baker's dozen. Yeah.
The killer is the 13th. But okay, keep going.
Yeah, exactly. And right at the start of the competition, a guy who makes a very unfavorable impression on the entire crew of contestants ends up being murdered. And one of the contestants kind of takes it upon herself to try to solve the crime as the producers just act like nothing happened because they don't want anything to ruin the reputation of the show. Yeah. So if you're a fan of like Knives Out, if you're a fan of Agatha Christie, I think this would be a really fun read. It's by the team that did the comic book Giant Days, the writer and author team. So the cartooning work in it is really fun, very expressive, very funny character work being done in it. It's just like a hoot, and I'm very excited to see how the mystery is going to unfold in the future issues to come.
It's really that good that it's your number one?
Yeah, I think that would be my number one. I also am a big fan of those kinds of murder mystery stories. So I feel like that's something that hasn't been explored much in the comic book space. I feel like most mystery stories are like hard-boiled crime comics, like your Ed Brubaker, Sean Phillip kind of books. Yeah. And I don't feel like this type of murder mystery has ever really been done in a comic book format before. Okay. So there's a little bit of a novelty to it that I'm really enjoying. But I think my other number one pick of the week would probably be Guardians of the Galaxy #1. I think this sets up a really interesting new status quo.
Let's talk about it. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it was quite possibly the last time we were together. But on this show, I had the reputation of being the person who was excited for Guardians of the Galaxy, the movie, when it was first announced. I'm ride or die for the Guardians. I love these characters.
Oh, the original one?
Yes.
The ones that nobody knew or cared about or anything?
Except for me, Dimitri.
But who are you looking forward to? Tell me this. Which team did you think you thought it was going to be like a Yondu Starhawk?
No,
is that what his name is?
Did you never read the Dan
No, I did.
Yeah. Run?
But no. Yeah. That's around Annihilation, right? Is that around? Okay.
Yes, it came right out of Annihilation.
I may have picked up a couple of issues, but I'm not saying it's bad, but it's
good as hell.
But Guardians itself was a property that I was like, you're talking that from the year 3000 bullshit,
No, I was all in on those, and I had a feeling they would be the ones that got introduced because that book had become fairly popular in nerd circles.
Oh, so okay.
And I remember. Yeah. I have a very distinct memory of seeing the concept art for the first time and seeing Rocket and Groot and being like, people are going to know who Rocket and Groot are. This is madness.
Right.
Well, so I've been ride or die for those characters.
After it was announced, but before it came out, I believe they introduced Guardians of the Galaxy on Avengers, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes cartoon.
Yes.
And that's when Rocket had a British voice.
He sounds like Jason Statham.
Yeah.
In those, but that team in the show is very much that 2005-ish comic, the Abden Lanning version.
Yeah. There were more space cops at that point, though, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that the Guardians franchise as like a comic has kind of like struggled to find its voice a little bit, because I think a lot of people were trying to emulate the James Gunn movie for obvious reasons. Yeah. I think the Al Ewing run was a good sort of balance between the two. And I like what this run is doing, where they're setting up like an entirely radically different status quo, where we're kind of dropped into this sort of Sergio Leone Western kind of vibe for the team. There's this mystery as to like what exactly has happened to them. They're sort of like on the run from this strange entity that I don't want to spoil because it's kind of a cool twist. But
we have to spoil. I mean, this whole show's about spoiling, unless it's spoiling amongst us.
So apparently, Groot has turned into some kind of planet-wide virus.
Yes, Grootfall
and is infecting Grootfall. They call it, that is infecting planet after planet, and they're just kind of doing their best to scramble and rescue whoever they can before a Grootfall takes a planet. And I really liked it. I thought this was great.
It's weird. It's very Galactus, right? Because they do mention that Galactus had taken these guys' planet before, and Groot comes.
Right.
And wouldn't that suck in the Marvel Universe? And it happens in real life, too, when someone survives a disaster and then gets killed by another disaster. That sucks. So this whole community survived Galactus eating their planet, and then...
Right.
Some of them die via Grootfall, right?
Right.
And so we're dealing with the team in this being, and correct me if I'm wrong about one thing after I say it, but basically it's Star-Lord, it's Gamora, it's Nebula, it's Mantis, and it's Drax, which is a good team. Mm-hmm. Everybody the viewers know from the movies. But like,
of course.
Have we seen Nebula recently? Nebula hasn't been on the Guardians team ever, right? Am I wrong?
Yeah.
She's a new addition in the comics.
I'm trying to remember if she was ever in the Donny Cates run. I don't think she was, but that had a lot of cosmic characters in it, so she might have popped up at some point. But the movie
when they did a huge Guardians team, is that the Donny Cates run?
Yeah,
when it was
had a huge Guardians team.
Prince of Power? Is that
like that was Al Ewing's run?
Oh, okay.
But he had like Beta Ray Bill was there.
Oh yeah. Silver Surfer.
For a minute. Yeah. But I remember there was a Vita Ayala Nebula miniseries that kind of got like cut short and canceled. Didn't even get to like properly finish. And in that they were sort of building up the Nebula redemption arc. She's always kind of had a weird space in the Marvel universe where she's been like kind of towing that line between hero and villain, and it feels like they're really saying, all right, let's put her properly on the side of the angels, at least somewhat, in this story, to flesh her out in the comics canon, which I think is great.
Yeah, I mean, I'm cool with her being on this thing. It just seems very much that they're trying to keep it in line with the movies, which is fine. But some of my favorite Guardians characters are not movie Guardians characters. Nova being one of them.
A lot of characters.
You know?
Yeah. Which is why I think that Al Ewing run I thought hit a really good sweet spot of being like the classic Guardians comics with like acknowledging
Phyla-Vell and Moondragon.
Mm-hmm. Moondragon was there too. Yeah. But I'm excited to see where this goes, because even though, your comment about like, wanting to reference the movie, of course, but I appreciate the fact that even though it is like recognizable movie Guardians characters, it's a radically different status quo. They're putting them in a story that's so drastically different than anything that the movies are doing.
Yeah.
That I would rather them say like, all right, we'll put the characters that the moviegoers would recognize in there, but we're going to do a story that's totally different. I think that's a good direction to take things, because then you don't feel like you're giving everybody this thing that they've already seen in $1 million blockbuster. You know what I mean?
How do you feel about issue ones starting off en media res and then going back to fill in the gaps? Is it overdone? Is it overdone? Because every book, Fantastic Four #1, Spider-Man,
Yeah.
Amazing Spider-Man #1, like all these #1s are starting off with, oh, it's a new status quo and we won't tell you how until later.
Yeah. I think so. Two things. I have two thoughts on that. One, it's actually funny you said that because I was thinking about this exact same thing before I came on today. And I think the part of the reason that's being done is in part because of Hoxpox. I think they saw how well Hoxpox works putting the reader into more or less an in media res. Because if you think about it, we really don't see much of Krakoa being put together. We get little snippets of it. It's not as much of a mystery as the ones you're using as an example, but it's very much like, no, we're putting you in the deep end of this. Like, where probably issue 10 would normally be kicking you off in a story arc potentially, we're starting that with issue 1. Yeah. And I think they've seen the success of doing that with, a first issue or an early on issue to get people hooked. I don't have a problem with it. I think the question is simply, how long is it going to take for you to explain to me what the mystery is? And is the mystery satisfying? Like, I think those are the two things.
Are you reading Amazing Spider-Man? Because they only just got to it.
Yes. Versus, say, Fantastic Four, where I feel like they explained it, 2 months ago?
It was like issue 3 or something.
That they explained it?
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, they explained it very early on. So it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah,
where,
issue 4.
Now, if the Amazing Spider-Man story ends up paying off in a way where I'm like worth the 25 issue wait, then I'm not going to care as much.
Yeah.
But I think it is that double-edged sword of, if you're going to wait that long, it's got to be really satisfying, or just tell us. Don't stress that much about it. But I think it's a smart thing for an issue 1 because it puts everybody on the same playing field. It puts experienced readers in a position where they're like, I know all this continuity because I've read Guardians for 10 plus years. And then a new reader's like, I'm picking this up for the first time. You're more or less on a level playing field. And a new reader doesn't feel like, oh, I need to know 10 years of continuity, because even the person who knows 10 years continuity is like, I don't know what's happening either. We're learning together.
So I'm going to use I'm going to use an example, a metaphor before we move on. And that is, I feel like if you were to come to me and say, hey, look, Dimithri, I can give you just not a good cake right now. But you can have it right now. You can have a not a good cake right now. Or you can wait. And it's going to take me, it might take me a long time, because good things take time, right? And I'm like, okay, I'm going to wait it out. I'm going to be hungry. I'm going to crave that cake. And when you're ready, when you're done baking it and it's perfect and nice and moist and whatever, you hand it to me and I can enjoy it. Then I would be like, yeah, it was worth the wait, right? But if you take that same cake and instead think to yourself, I'm just going to make him wait a little bit longer, he won't know. This cake could have been given to him yesterday, but I'm going to wait 3 more days and give it to him then. It's still going to taste great, but I'm going to put a little more buffer time just for the sake of it. I would feel like you're a dick. So regardless of whether Amazing Spider-Man,
Amazing Spider-Man,
if it sticks the landing, if it makes sense, the payoff for what happened in the beginning now, he still took this long to do it when he could have had that same one, but earlier. Unless every single issue leading up to it needed to happen to get us to this point, which it didn't. There's no way. Some of those were filler shit. Then, yeah. I'd rather just have the shitty cake right now and then just move on. And it's okay. It's cake, It's only going to be so bad.
Yeah. I agree. I think you have I think it all comes back to the new reader problem, right? Where it's like, you want to have a first issue that is going to hook new readers and not require them to know a ton of stuff, but also excite and intrigue older readers, right? And I think that's an easy way to do it. Now, again, is it always successful? No. Sometimes you end up with a cake that took you 25 issues to get to, and maybe that cake's not very good.
Or maybe the cake is just as good, but you could have had it at issue 15,
Yeah, exactly.
And that's okay.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that on paper, but we'll see.
Okay. Let's talk about another one that we both read. All right.
Do we
Sins
want
of
to get to some of the X books?
just Sins of Sinister, Storm, and the Brotherhood of Mutants, number 3.
Hell
So this has been nice because Sins of Sinister, these books, there's only 3 titles that were changed. Legion of X became Nightcrawlers. X-Men Red became Storm and the Brotherhood of Mutants. And Immortal X-Men became Immoral X-Men. And it's just those 3 titles with 3 issues each. So over 3 months, we get kind of like a little story, a little event that's about 11 issues total, right? Sins of Sinister to begin with, Sins of Sinister to end with, and those 9 issues in between. And each month, it bumps forward a power of 10, which has to be a Hoxpox reference, right? The first
100%.
issue of each of those 3 are 10 years down the line, then 100 years and 1,000 years, right? And so this is the second to last, or second even, of this final 1,000 years, right? We had Immoral X-Men number 3, then we had Storm of the Brotherhood of Mutants number 3, and then next month, or next week probably, Nightcrawlers number 3, and then we get Sins of Sinister Dominion, which will end it. All the other X-Men titles have been going on. Like, they've been continuing.
Yeah.
They haven't taken a break. But just those 3 titles have. And so what happens next, I don't know. I didn't ask for this event, Brian, but weirdly enough, I didn't ask for it. I didn't care. I was like, I don't know where they're going. And it's one of those things like, we've been reading comics for a long time now. Should I have more trust? Yes and no. In this, I should have had more trust. In Axe Judgment Day, I should have had more trust. But in Dark Web, I was good with the lack of trust that I had because it was not good.
Well, I think the difference there is you have 2 of the best writers at Marvel, Kieran Gillen and Al Ewing, as like 2 of the primary architects of this story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
tell me.
I'm sorry, you can't go wrong.
Tell me, Brian, because I want to hear it from the mouth of babes. Why are the best writers writing X-Men?
Why are those 2 the best writers at writing X-Men currently?
Why? Like, generally speaking, like some of the best writing that I see is on X-Men. Is it just me as an X-Men fan? Is it in general? Are they purposely putting good writers onto X-Men titles, knowing that X-Men titles do sell?
Yeah. Well, it's this weird thing where those 2 specifically being Al Ewing and Kieran Gillen, they've been writing other stuff for Marvel. Like Kieran Gillen wrote an incredible Eternal series. I don't think anybody read that series, and they're missing out because it's like one of the best Marvel books of the past like 5 to 10 years. I think that series is incredible. Similar with Al Ewing, he does books like X-Men Red, which is very high profile, but then he'll also do like Defenders and Defenders Beyond, which are also incredible and these really interesting like metatextual analysis of the nature of superhero stories. But again, nobody's picking those books up, and that's their loss. You know what I mean?
I couldn't get through Defenders Beyond. I couldn't get through it.
Oh, it's good. It's real good. You should give it a chance.
Eternals I did read and liked, which is weird because I don't really like the Eternals at all. I did read it, and then I think I didn't finish it, and then Axe Judgment Day happened, and then I just continued with Axe Judgment Day. So,
I mean, that's pretty much the ending of it is Axe Judgment Day,
right.
Really. But yeah, I think that it's this weird thing where like they're doing bangers, in my opinion, outside of the X books, but people just aren't talking about those as much because they're not the high profile brand. You know
so
what
it's
I mean?
2 things. Is that what we're saying?
Well, I would say it's not just that they're great at writing X-Men books. I think it's that they're good writers in general. But I also think because they're good writers in general, they write real good X-Men books. You know what I mean?
But they get put onto X-Men because they do good jobs in these non-X-Men books because people who are writing for X-Men aren't new writers, right? Like, you have to prove yourself, and then they move you to X-Men, right?
Exactly.
I can't imagine. That's a dream. Like, I wouldn't like. Can you imagine writing for Marvel and then being essentially said, "You're good enough, write X-Men"?
I think I would take the route that Chip Zdarsky did, where I'd be like, "No, these people are too intense. The fans of this stuff are crazy."
Is it really? Is that what he says?
he was offered Spider-Man. And
Okay.
or I don't know if he was offered it, but whenever people would be like, "Are you going to write like Amazing Spider-Man?" He was like, "No, y'all are crazy. I will not put myself through that." The fact that he was like, "I will write Batman and deal with Batman fans before I write Spider-Man" says a lot, I think, about how people treat these characters on the internet.
You know what's funny?
On the internet.
Daredevil fans and Batman fans are complete opposites. Daredevil fans are pretty chill, right? They're just like, hey man, Matt Murdock gets beaten up. Like, I get it, man. Like, he can't win all the time. And then the Batman side is like, how dare he be beat up once? Like, who are you, man? Who are you to write Batman getting beaten up even once?
Yeah. I think the weird argument you see in the Daredevil fan circles is people who think that every Daredevil thing needs to be the darkest thing that's ever been produced, which is ironically, I think, the same problem that a lot of Batman fans have.
Yeah.
But that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
So I've been loving this, and I especially love, I've been going back and reading through the Chris Claremont run of X-Men for the first time. I've started that project like early last year, and I'm still chopping away at it. Yeah. But a thing that I find really striking is just how much like Storm is the leader of the team. You know what I mean? Like, I always knew she was a beloved character, but you really see the amount of work and respect that Claremont put into that character. And I feel like Al Ewing is very much inheriting that stewardship of the character, that he's like, this is a character that is beloved by people, and I really want to build up why she is the A-tier X-Men character that she is. Yeah. And you really see it in this book, in X-Men Red. It's been awesome.
How do I put this? I don't want to say that I pray at the altar of Chris Claremont, because nowadays I'm not a big fan of his stuff nowadays, because I feel like it's hard for him to jump back in, because he used to not have to jump into continuity. He was continuity for X-Men, right? For close to 20 years. And so he knew exactly where each chess piece was. And he was having fun with it. He was dancing. He was doing all these things. And then you try to they took him out, right? At X-Men, after X-Men number 1. Was it X-Men number 1 that he
It was around that time. It wasn't long after that.
It was like 1 or 2. It was after. It was. I think it's like 2. Like issue 2 was his final issue.
Yeah.
In the 90s, because and then they brought on John Byrne. No, who?
Yeah, I think John Byrne wrote it with Jim Lee for like a hot minute, and then somebody else came. It was Fabian Nicienza. I don't remember, but
like, I get editorial decision to kind of like X-Men stuff is Claremont stuff. It's not Stan. 100%. It's not Stan Lee. People credit him with starting it, but I mean, he's your anyway, Sins of Sinister, and give us a resolution to this event that I never asked for.
Yeah. I thought it was really fun. A little bit. Yeah. And keeping it to the very simple schedule. It was a manageable crossover that I thought would have to pick up and read. It wasn't like 3 simple miniseries. It was 7 miniseries of 4 issues each, with like a start and an end book. Because
the titles will come back at some point, but like, okay. What else? Stuff that we both read, and then we can go over the things that we individually read. But we don't have too much time. I'm
really liking it. I really thought about it. It was like, the FF are just kind of bumming around the country. Yeah. They're just going from place to place, solving problems, and I kind of love that being like classic Star Trek
Avenger kind of thing.
Yeah, which is a lost art in our modern day and age. You rarely get the one and done issues. And I think he's been doing a great job at it. Like, it's a perfect book to give to someone who's like, I want to know about the FF and I've never read any Fantastic Four. It's such a like breeze.
Always messing around, because they put, how long do they put? They take the building or the block of city and they shunt it forward in time.
It's a year. It'll only feel like seconds for the people in there.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a year's worth of time.
It's a year else, because the Earth has to come back around.
Right, exactly. They got to drop it at the same location.
Which is also weird, because even though the Earth goes like this around the sun, it is going around the
It's also yes.
So whatever. I guess he accounted for everything except for looping just that one solar system. But okay, that's fine.
He had to act fast.
Yeah.
But this is a crazy thing about it, like this issue and that issue, which feels like the end of issue 6 is like leading into this idea. But like they're making some pretty severe unilateral decisions.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's like, yes, these are the right decisions for the moment, but they're still like big choices. Whether it's first of all, Sue Storm makes the sun's rays invisible over Kansas for 3 days straight, which is a wild sentence to consider. But like that act and moving the chunk of New York City forward in time a year to stop the negative zone invasion, like these are big choices that Reed's making. And I'm wondering, based on the end of this issue, how those strong unilateral decisions are going to come back to bite them.
It's interesting. Okay, so like in any situation, I back the X-Men 100%. Like there's no way you're gonna tell me that like the Avengers have the right to step up to mutant kind, right? Like,
sure.
You know. But if the Avengers step in to stop the Fantastic Four, if they, you know, are saying like they're too powerful,
right.
First thing, damn hypocrites, because the Avengers will do things like none other. And Reed Richards does his own things too, but like, who do you back? Who do you back if the Avengers say, hey, Fantastic Four, you got to consult with us before you do these big things?
It's a tough question to answer because they kind of make a joke about this in the issue, where Mr. Fantastic is like so certain that he's right, but the problem is he kind of usually is right. Is the thing. Like, I trust him to make a decision more than most other people. And there's the funny bit where like the town is like turning on them and there's like a riot about to start, and then the sun comes back and they're like, all right, well, don't do it again. I'll just leave and walk away. And they're like, oh, thank God, that was a close one. But it's like, at the end of the day, like, yeah, this decision is like a tough one, and these are hard things that you'd have to live through. But on the flip side of that, Reed Richards does kind of know what he's doing. You know what I mean? I would trust him with these sorts of things more than I would just about anybody else, you know?
Yeah. Maybe I think if it's who do I trust more, Reed or Tony? I guess Reed.
Reed every day of the week.
I guess Reed, but also let's bring the X-Men in. How about this? The Fantastic Four reports to the X-Men because, you know, they're obviously just the better, you know, dare I say superior team. Like, well, I don't know. It's comic books. Captain America: Cold War. We're dealing with geopolitics, but like behind the scenes, conspiracies, that sort of thing.
Monsters from Dimension Z.
Monsters from Dimension Z, which was out of left field. I didn't think that's what they were going with. That was great. It reeks of Dark Web to me, because Dark Web could have been just a clone revenge story, but then it had to also do with like demons from hell.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So Cold War seems
to be fair, one of those clones is the Queen of Hell.
Yeah, right. But like Ben Reilly becoming like King of Hell or whatever ended up happening, I don't know. It was fucking weird. But Captain America: Cold War, I'm liking it. I'm liking this kind of little crossover event. I'm a big fan of multi-series. How do I put this? I'm a big fan of taking like one idea and creating multiple series that go on concurrently. For example, in this case, sure. Sam Wilson and Steve Rogers, and having them, do their thing, and then they kind of meet up and do a little crossover.
I agree.
Or one comes into one title and then comes out in the other. You know, I'm a big fan of that. X-Men obviously does it all the time. I like the idea of like corners of the Marvel universe that kind of weave in and out, right? And
I was surprised at how much this book was bringing the two threads together. Like, I was not expecting White Wolf to be a part of this and have such a prominent role.
Yeah.
So I was like bringing both of the threads of these books together and having them pay off in an interesting way.
I thought he wanted the throne of Wakanda, and I was like, the
That's what I thought too.
audacity.
That's
The
definitely what they wanted you to think.
The audacity of this guy. Your name is Hunter, which sounds cool if you're an actual hunter, but no, you're a white guy named Hunter. No offense to my one white friend named Hunter that I do know in real life. He's not listening to this, but I like him.
Apologies anyway.
You know? But
yeah, they've done a great job of building him up to be a great, like, real piece of shit villain, the White Wolf.
Yeah. I'm looking up, like, a little bit more about White Wolf and, like, when he turned bad, but, like...
Oh, he's always kind of been bad. I mean, that when he was first showing up in the Christopher Priest run, he was, like... part of that run was, like, the reveal that he was sort of doing his own machinations behind the scene, behind T'Challa's back. But now he's just, like, full-on a supervillain, which I kind of love. Because that's a character that I think has a lot of interesting potential, but they never really did much with him after that Christopher Priest run. And I think they brought him back in a cool way.
I mean, it is kind of weird. It's Shakespearean almost, but it is kind of funny.
Oh,
like
100%.
Adopted brother white guy from Wakanda, like you know, okay, that's fine. You know,
I love it.
But I'm interested to see where this goes. I am glad to see Ian back, and I hope that. I'm a big fan of families, so I want Captain America to have a full-time son.
Yeah, well, and this I think builds on your comment of, like, having a corner of the universe. I think that they've really done a great job of rebuilding Captain America's supporting cast and having all these really interesting characters from throughout his history, whether it's, you know, Ian from not that long ago, but also, like, Destroyer from way back in the golden age of the comic. Having the, like, Sharon relationship be rebuilt again, I think has been really great. There's a lot of really good supporting cast stuff. I also love just, like, the regular people from his art class that he hangs out with that are they weren't in this issue, but they've been in the mainline Captain America series, because I don't think we get enough superheroes hanging out with just regular ordinary people in comics these days. I feel like that's kind of a lost art of the book, and having that supporting cast grounds the character in an interesting way. So definitely,
my approach to comic books is very similar to my approach to what I thought the Phase 4 of the MCU was going to be, or at least what I would have done, and that is, I don't think there should be an ultimate baddie for everything, but there should be a baddie that you're gearing up for different corners. MCU series like Guardians, like Captain Marvel, like what, right? Like, and maybe introduce a new thing, and they can all gear up for a crossover event for 3 series of that. But then you can have, like, the Super Soldier, Secret Spies corner of the MCU do their own thing, right? Or you can have the Avengers corner. They can go really wherever, right? Then you get the X-Men corner. Then you get the super science, like Hulk, Fantastic Four, like those kind of, like, series that can kind of play around with each other. We don't need to build up to the Galactus for 12 years, you know? We don't need that. But, like, so in the comics, it is nice to see. It would be cool to see Black Widow get a title again and cross over with them.
Oh, yeah, I agree.
You know? And again, X-Men already does their thing. They're their own corner, you know? And then all the Spider titles, I want more Spider titles, but I want them to be good, so that's kind of tough.
Sure. Well, I think that I think that they're learning these lessons from how successful Krakoa has been, and you end up with stuff like 2 Captain America books running concurrently, where you have, like, clear worlds that are being built that can cross over with each other. Because I think, like you said, I think when people come to these comics, these shared universes, they like those little pockets. They like the magic pocket.
Yeah.
They like
magic pocket being another pocket. Yeah, you're right.
So I think, and I feel like you've been getting that. I guess maybe not as much, but I like the way that each of these Doctor Strange books lately have been nicely threading into one another, where his death had ripple effects on everything magic related, like Strange Academy. I just like this week's Blade, or Bloodline Daughter of Blade.
I read the first issue, or the first couple issues. I just haven't read this issue.
This issue I think has been the best one so far because you get like
good.
the father-daughter bonding stuff. Vampire would ever find you
Oh.
and discover you're my daughter. And he's like, and when he died, that spell was broken.
Oh,
so that's why,
yeah,
like,
that's cool.
now you've been kind of thrust into this world, making that happen more.
I would love to have which is put a spell on me that said I will always be true to the one woman that I love the most. And if this spell is broken, maybe I go insane. Who knows? How long? Yeah, I guess, right? How long have you been cheating on me? I don't know, like a couple years now. Yeah, he's only been dead for like 6 days. So died. He told me that it was going to go back in time. The spell travels backwards as far as forward in time. It's quantum with just small blurbs of what we thought. Tell me about Barbaric.
Barbarian was cursed by a witch to only kill people who deserve it, and he has a magic axe that talks and gets drunk on blood. It's super fun. Highly recommend it.
Okay, cool. Miles Morales number 5. Miles Morales Spider-Man right now, written by Cody Ziegler, is the best Spider title in a long time.
Yeah, I think I probably agree with you on that. I love this book. It's super great.
Yeah, he has more Spider-Man than Peter Parker has ever been in the last maybe I don't know how many years.
Well, and I want to make a distinction here because I think that this book is like for a lot of reasons. Right. And I know a lot of people who make that argument are just making a straw man argument for shitty racist reasons.
Right.
But it bothers me that opinions are proven wrong by these books that have done a lot of work to establish supporting casts, relationships with his family, the character who he is in his long run, but already established some new interesting elements that are really great. And the art kicks ass.
The art is yeah, okay. Definitely worth picking up on this one. This issue itself was kind of
he's gonna fight Carnage. It's gonna be crazy.
Okay.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Moon Knight 22, much like the current Fantastic Four book, continues the sort of like one and done story arc trend that's been going on. Mm-hmm. This issue is spotlighting. Continues to be a really good book, month in and month out. Like the original Moon, there have been, I think, in previous Moon Knight runs, super heroism.
Yeah. I think it's definitely worth picking up as long as it sticks to landing. It could be prime for like a streaming service movie or something like that. Like I think that
who's the publisher of that?
I can't really. Oh, it's Image. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so maybe an Amazon Prime movie or something.
Yeah.
It's a refreshing new take on it. It's pretty good. Nemesis Reloaded number 4. It got better in this one. I can't complain about issue number 4.
This is Nemesis?
Yeah, figuring out what happened to the lost president of 1981 or something like that. That's a plot of Gravity Falls. Like there is a Gravity Falls, but we'll see. Predator number 2. To renumber from the apes. Predator kind of has to do with kind of like the plot of the Predators movie where humans are put onto a reserve and being hunted by predators. Tell me real quick about some of the other ones that you read.
Written and drawn by Stan Dagon. Is great. He was the creator of Usagi Yojimbo and is a phenomenal writer and artist.
Okay.
For clarity's sake.
Okay. Superman Lost.
Yeah, it continues to be great. Aliens, which is it's a great book. I think it's really.
Yeah, or it is.
I don't think so. It's one of those things where like, it could be.
Okay, fine.
Hyper time, baby.
All right, fine.
If they suddenly decide it is, it will be.
Okay. Stoneheart number 2. Tell me about it.
Bryce N draws it. Emma Kubert, you might know as the granddaughter of Joe Kubert.
She's on TikTok.
Yes, she's got a great TikTok. You get a lot of good. Can't really quite control. We get introduced to the co-lead of the series. But yeah, it's just a really cool book. If you're looking for like a good fantasy comic, this is definitely worth checking out and reading.
All right. Silver Surfer is good as like a supporting character that pops in and out, but I have never been attached to Silver Surfer as a main character.
You never even read like the
for
some real like who died in trying to help the Silver Surfer. So the Silver Surfer like leaves on his grave like an eternal flame made of cosmic energy that'll like burn until the earth like that was like carried on after his death. And this guy essentially gets resurrected with cosmic powers And the idea of being a normal person in the Marvel universe and suddenly being thrust into the strange world of becoming a superhero.
Yeah.
Silver Surfer is in the title because he's like, you know, the well-known character, but it's really
about
the story
Ghostlight.
Yes.
Okay. Last but not least, Seasons Have Teeth #1.
Okay, this is a very cool book from Boom. Boom is like having this very interesting sort of horror comics renaissance, I feel like. Like they're really kind of becoming like Vertigo in the 80s, where they have a lot of fantasy horror books. And the premise of this book is it takes place in a world where seasons don't really exist anymore. The world just kind of exists in this sort of neutral climate state. And the seasons are kaiju monsters that manifest as like representations of those seasons. So like this first issue, get introduced to Spring, who's this big like who is essentially making it his goal to try to get the first photos ever taken of these creatures. It's very interesting. It's very
do they go back to sleep, or do they kill people? What do they do?
When spring comes, like the flora and the fauna just grow out of control and destroy things in their path. So people in the start of this issue are like evacuating a small town like a hurricane's coming. But what's actually happening is that this grass kaiju is coming into town, essentially.
Yeah. I'm assuming summer's going to be winter, will be freezing things. Like
something like that, yeah. We'll see.
Is it too simple? Or
protagonist in his sort of journey that he's gone on. Like he's an older guy. Like this has been very much like him at the end of his life trying to do one last meaningful thing with the artistic form that he's dedicated his life to.
Okay.
It very much feels like a 90s Vertigo book that like Neil Gaiman would have put together or somebody like that.
Okay. And what company is it for?
It's Boom Studios.
Oh, this is Boom. Okay. All right. You think it's worth picking up?
Yeah, I think if that's your vibe, if you like that kind of like horror fantasy sort of story, you want to just pick up 4 quick issues, definitely worth checking out.
Okay. All right. I mean, I think that's everything that we read this week.
We pretty much
to touch on we get to talk more comics. Go to www.comicshoplocator.com. All the comic shops near you. Not all comic shops are the same. In fact, they're all different. They're not chains. They're individually owned. So if the owner is a dick, that in mind, we can give you locator.com. Otherwise, how are you going to find the comic shops?
Of course.
To
find me on TikTok primarily on recommendations. Right now, I'm in the middle of the school year, so I haven't been making as many TikToks as I normally do. Yeah. But I'm trying to get at least maybe like 2 reviews of new books up. Or someone who's a little new to the hobby and you want a great first experience in a comic shop. Finding out if your local comic book store participates in Free Comic Book Day and going on Free Comic Book Day, I think is a great way to start getting into the hobby. Get a bunch of free comics. There's no better way to do it.
When is it? When's free will most?
Every comic shop has like big sale.
Yeah. Okay. All right. You're missing out. The Keeg Show or youtube.com/The Keeg Show. But our podcast is wherever you get your podcast from: Apple Podcasts, Google Play, SoundCloud, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Stitcher. Now, if you want to keep track of us, what else the Keeg is up to, you can find the Keeg on social media at The Keeg Show on TikTok and Instagram. Those are our 2 big ones. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, that sort of thing. And if another social media thing pops up, we'll probably snatch that up as well. But TikTok and Instagram are our 2 biggest ones, at The Keeg Show or /The Keeg Show, pretty much wherever, which includes Patreon. With patreon.com/The Keeg Show. If you want to give back to The Keeg, you can make donations that way. We'll subscription tier, find a tier that works for you. We'd greatly appreciate it, and it definitely helps out. Other than that, this is Comic Talk. It's every Thursday from 5 to about 6:30 Pacific time. We also got the Mandalorian after show, or at least one more episode of it. And that is right after every Mandalorian episode. We also got the Keeg Talks, which is every weekend. And there are some other after shows that we'll be having, like for Secret Invasion, for Ahsoka. So definitely stay tuned for that. Again, Instagram and TikTok at The Keeg Show to stay tuned on what we got coming up. Other than that, that's pretty much the gist of things. We did a Dungeons & Dragons giveaway, and I will be releasing the winner in a little bit. I already told the winner, so they're working it out. But they got a lot of cool stuff. But stay tuned to the Keeg for other giveaways. I'm going to start giving away some comics and stuff and doing some cool stuff there. So other than that, that's pretty much just the things. Thank you, Brian, so much for coming on. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you to anybody out there who's watching and or listening. Let us know you're out there. Like, comment, subscribe, do your thing. Let us know you're out there, because otherwise we don't know if you're out there. Brian never knows or lets us know when he's watching or listening to an episode. You gotta comment, man. Brian, let me know that you're watching. Otherwise, how am I supposed to know?
Well, sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I don't want to be a bother.
No, you're not a bother. I'd rather know that you're out there so we don't talk shit on you, you know?
Well, I also tend to catch it in podcast form for my commute.
Do whatever it takes on the podcast thing. I don't know how, like, you can write a review. You can write a review. You can write a review. You can do that. All right, cool. Anyway, thank you everybody else out there. Once again, I am your host, Dimithri Perera, and this has been another episode of Comic Talk, this time for the week of April 13th, 2023. Take care, everybody. See you guys next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.